We just want to remind people to be very mindful of the information you're sharing, as it will be made public through the recording. So any PHI, which is protected health information, which would identify you or a loved one or someone you're talking about, please be mindful of that. We are using the chat to collect questions. We won't be reading out questions and comments necessarily from the chat. We are taking verbal comments, and I'll get to that in a minute. There's a link you see to get the slides for this meeting, and that's on the Case Management Redesign web page. And if you've never gone there, you should really check it out. There's a whole lot there. So we are also set up to have people listen by phone. And if you are wanting to make a verbal comment or question, you will press *6 to unmute yourself. You can also press *9 on your phone to raise your hand in the webinar, which is the main way that we are asking people to get into the queue. There is closed captioning available for you to implement by clicking the button at the bottom. And again, there's meeting information on the website on that page there. So next slide, please.
Will the chat be recorded, please?
We have the chat available for you to copy and paste. So anybody on here is able to copy and paste the chat.
I don't mean copy and paste. I mean part of the meeting recording.
It's on the, I mean, it's being recorded. And then as far as posting it to the website, that is still something that our leadership is working on to see if it's something they can do. But they have allowed us to at least start using the chat here. And then we go through and try to take out any PHI that we can. But we better get going.
Okay. That's very frustrating to us because that's not making the meeting transparent at all to those of us who use the chat. I think that's very unfair of HCBS.
We will, thank you, Jerry. We will move forward to the next slide, please. Oh, we are on it. I beg your pardon. I'm looking at my slide deck and the webinar, sorry. So again, recording the meeting. And again, PHI, please be careful about the things that you share. Next slide, please. And I believe we're on number 2. So we are going to give a specified amount of time at several points, many points during this meeting for questions, ideas. We have a limited amount of time and a lot to get through, so we will be possibly calling time when we're not all the way through the speakers queue. The idea is to hear from as many people as possible. But if you have a comment or question and you don't need to say it out loud, please put it into the chat and it will not get lost, as we discussed a minute ago. Please identify the section of the rule or regulation that you are referring to. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. We're on housekeeping number 3. So again, you can give your comments verbally. I will be calling for names. I will see if there's a certain number of people who are on the phone only. And at points, I will be asking people who are on the phone to give them an even chance to participate, to unmute their phone by pressing *6. And please identify yourself when you make comments by giving your name to begin with. And we do have the listening log. You can check to make sure that your comments are captured correctly. So thank you. Next slide, please. We're on number 4. I'm going along. Bear with me for 1 sec, folks. Here we are. So we've been learning as we go along in this process, and we have figured out that so far we have 100 people. We've had about 150, to my knowledge, per meeting. And so in an attempt to hear from as many stakeholders as possible, we are going to have the 2-minute time limit, and I will keep time. That includes any back and forth dialogue about your comment with staff. And we are setting the limit that when you raise your hand, it's 1 question or 1 comment, not a series of follow-up comments, because we have so many people in the meeting. And I will be keeping time, and I will call time I will give people a 15-second heads up. And so please, if anything is unrelated to the immediate topic, as we're trying to keep moving, please put it into the chat and we will put it into issues for further discussion. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, and here's the agenda for today's meeting. We are going to be starting at, hopefully, and it looks like it, by 9:15 with the meat of the meeting and go through the rules and regulations, get your comments. We'll go till about 10:45. We will call time to do a wrap up. And I will ask Nicolette and or Tiffany if there's anything that I missed, as I often do, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'm going to go through these next slides pretty quickly because for those of you who have been with us previously, these should not be new information. So the purpose of our meeting today is really to share draft rules with stakeholders and gather feedback. These meetings are really about the rules and their structure. So we're going to try to stay focused on those things at this time. Next slide, please. This is kind of the basics of the rule process. So first we have subject matter experts who draft new rules and their structure. We bring those to you all as stakeholders, and then we have those subject matter experts and our HCBS leadership incorporating those approved updates. Then the case management redesign team is working on the drafts to be sent through clearance, and then will be sent over to the Medical Services Board. Next slide, please. Because this is such a big revision, we'll be working with the Medical Services Board in advance to prepare them for how they can find what they're looking for, where things have moved. We'll have a crosswalk that will be provided to the Medical Services Board, but also publicly to stakeholders. And then final drafts will go to the Medical Services Board coordinator, who posts those for public comment and then sent through our Attorney General's office for a formal review. We will then present to the Medical Services Board and answer any questions and hopefully get our approval with rules in effect by January 2024. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a timeline of all of those things. So we've been doing stakeholder engagement since October of 2022. Really appreciate everyone being here and the support that we've had from the stakeholders. It's really important feedback that we've gotten and has been really helpful in developing our final drafts to be sent to the Medical Services Board. September, we will have those drafts completed and we'll do an initial preparation meeting with the Medical Services Board. Then we're anticipating public comment will be in October, and then the first hearing in November, and then final rule adoption in January. Next slide, please. So what are we doing here today? As most of you know, our current rule structure is pretty fragmented. We have different pieces of different rules kind of scattered throughout our rules, making them complicated and kind of hard to find, hard to read, hard to follow. Next slide, please. So we have come up with a structure that hopefully is a little bit easier to follow, is a little bit clearer about whose responsibilities are whose, breaking things up into member rights and responsibilities, overall waiver program requirements, case management requirements, community center board requirements, provider requirements, and then service definitions. We are currently at the end of this process and we are at the service definitions for today. Next slide, please. So our goals for the rule updates is really to minimize our duplication within the rules and making sure that we are consistent across our rules and across programs. We also want to help everyone involved understand their roles and responsibilities so that members understand what is expected of them in these programs, and also case managers and providers are understanding what is expected of them. And then finally is that rule structure that is easy to follow, easy to understand, easy to find what you need. Next slide, please. So in some cases, like what we'll talk about today, we're really just restructuring. So a lot of what you'll see today, and Nicolette will go over that, is in black, which means nothing has changed in the service definition. We're literally just pulling out the service definition and putting it in to the structure of this flow that I just talked about. There will be a couple of changes. So any new statute or requirements that are in place, especially around case management redesign, we'll make those changes, and those will be apparent in the rule readouts. Next slide, please. Roles and responsibilities. So myself, I'm Tiffany Domicos, Nicolette Cordova, and John Barry. We are your facilitators. We are monitoring and moving conversations, walking through the rule changes, timekeeping, monitoring the queue, those kinds of things. We have subject matter experts here from the benefits and services team at Healthcare Policy and Financing, who'll be addressing any questions or concerns or comments as they relate to those rule updates and structure changes. And then we have our contractor, HCBS Strategies. They're really doing a lot of that back-end work, keeping things updated in the listening logs and issues for further discussion when those answers have been provided by subject matter experts. Next slide, please. We currently have 499 lines of stakeholder feedback and questions. So thank you again all for being here. Thank you for your time and effort. This is really important work, and we're really grateful for your partnership. Next slide. We do have one meeting left, and this was left as sort of a wrap up for the meetings. And so the way that we're going to approach this is really an open session with a focus on discussing specific listening log items. So we've heard from you all, there are specific items that you're concerned about or want to make sure that you get answers for. So we're asking you to send any items, any log items that you really want the department to spend time discussing and understanding to myself or Nicolette, and we will start a list of the items that want to be discussed by you all, and we'll address those in the order that they're sent on that June 27th meeting. If there is extra time, we'll be able to kind of have an open discussion of people just kind of coming and asking questions or addressing specific lines during that time. But that is how we'll do our next meeting. Next slide, please. As always, we have our rules, stakeholder issues for further discussion that we'll be using for any further meetings outside of this structure that needs more discussion, more feedback, more investigation that we can't address in these meetings. And those links are here, and I think Nicolette will throw those into the chat for us. Next slide, please. As Nicolette mentioned, the chat will be copyable. Please wait until the end of the meeting to do that, though. The HCPF staff is working to make sure that PHI, protected health information, is taken out of that and deleted. And so then it would be safe and okay for you all to copy and paste that for your own records. And then we are working on updating those logs. I know it takes some time. We have a lot of teams working on a lot of different things, and this is a priority. So we will have those updates completed by mid-July, if not sooner. So please check back for those when you have questions about them. And then for today's review, I'm going to turn it over to Karen Stewart, and she's going to talk a little bit about what you'll see today.
Good morning, Karen Stewart, Benefits Supervisor with our Office of Community Living. And if you were on our last call, this is going to be a review or a reminder. But some of the changes we've made globally to the rule section that includes the benefits, we've changed anywhere that there was a reference to client or participant, we are using member. Any capitalization changes have been made to clean up any previous rule updates. And same as we did with client and participant, if it notes individual, that has also been changed to member. Anywhere that there's CCB or a single entry point, SEP reference, that will be CMA for Case Management Agency. Service plan has been changed. Anywhere there's reference to anywhere there's a reference to a service plan, we're including the language of person-centered support plan or support plan. Any assessment reference has been changed to level of care screen. And then the way we've organized the home and community-based services, we try to keep very specific definitions included. Any general definitions have been pulled out and included in the definitions section, but where you'll see, as we review, you'll see some specific definitions and then the details of the service. As we've alphabetized everything, this is, for today's review, going to be kind of the second half of the section of benefits. And I think that's it for me. Nicolette?
So sorry. Okay. I put the wrong listening log thing out there, so I was trying to fix that. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be reading through, and you're going to see there is 91 pages, but many of those pages are in black, and therefore there's no changes. So we're going to skip through anything like that. You're going to see a lot of red line cross throughs. I put the document in the chat so that everybody has that, that you can kind of go along to, and we always post that a week ahead. So if there's anything that you wanted to go through in full later, or if you already have, let me know. Well, you can do that and then email us if you have anything that maybe I have missed. But in order to keep things going, I'm focusing on anything that we're seeing in blue and or with the backslashes or anything in green in the braces. And when we do the green, it's just going to be the paragraphs, because you're going to see a lot of little green and a lot of little blue. That's just because that's those little language changes that she was talking about, nothing that really has like the meat and potatoes of this. So we are going to go ahead and get that started. Let me change my share. Okay, I am going to go ahead and get this kicked off. Let me make it big so everybody can see what I'm going to be reading. And the first page, as you'll see, all of these are going to be black and red lines. So we're going to skip to page 7, where we have some green to read through. We're going to start on the in-home services and supports exclusions and limitations. Let me check. Okay, so Jerry, you had your hand up. Is there something that you needed before we get started? You're on mute, Jerry.
Yes, a couple of slides back, you stated, or you wrote, that the listing log would be addressed in mid-July.
So we're going to answer all the questions in the listening log by mid-July. But if there's anything specific you want addressed about the listening log, that is for our June 27th meeting. So you can go through, see if there's anything outstanding that we have not addressed yet, or that you would like more clarification on. You can email Tiffany or myself, and I put our emails in the chat with those issues, and we will bring them to that June 27th meeting. And the sooner everybody can do that, the better, so that we have time to get all of those answers and get it onto the slide deck.
But if something isn't done by mid-July, In other words, there's changes between June 27th and mid-July. There isn't another meeting for us to address those issues that come up in the listening log between June 27th and mid-July. This is sort of a problem.
So the way that we're going to address that is anything that's already in there that's posted live is not changing. That's what we've already had approval on, and that's what we'll then bring back to talk about. If there are things that you see are not addressed, like you go into a couple of sections and you see we haven't answered it yet, you could throw those at us too. And we will make sure that those are the questions we get answered right away to bring back to the June 27th.
Then what's the point of your having from June 27th to mid-July to again alter the listening log answers?
We don't plan on altering the listening log answers unless it's something from that June 27th that we need to have more conversation about. So I am going to move us forward though, because we have a lot of roll today to get through. All right, so let's get started on the in-home exclusions and limitations. A, HCBS, Elderly, Blind, and Disabled, EBD, Complementary Integrative Health, CIH, and Children's Home and Community-Based Service, CHCBS waivers. 1, IHSS services must be documented on an approved IHSS care plan and prior authorized before any services are rendered. The IHSS care plan and PAR must be submitted and approved by the case manager and received by the IHSS agency prior to services being rendered. Services rendered in advance of approval and receipt of these documents are not reimbursable. 2, services rendered by an attendant who shares living space with a member or family member are reimbursable only when there is a determination by the case manager made prior to the services being rendered that the services meet the definition of extraordinary care. 3, health maintenance activities may include related personal care and/or homemaker services if such tasks are completed in conjunction with the health maintenance activity and are secondary or continuous to the health maintenance activity. 1, secondary means in support of main tasks. Secondary tasks must be routine and regularly performed in conjunction with a health maintenance activity. There must be documented evidence that the secondary task is necessary for the health and safety of the member. Secondary tasks do not add units to the care plan. Continuous means before, during, or after the main tasks. Continuous tasks must be completed before, during, or after the health maintenance activity. There must be documented evidence that the contiguous task is necessary for the health and safety of the member. Contiguous tasks do not add units to the care plan. The IHSS agency shall not submit claims for health maintenance activities when only personal care and/or homemaking services are completed. Independent living core services, attendant training, and oversight of supervision provided by the IHSS agency's licensed healthcare professional. Are not separately reimbursable. No additional compensation is allowable for IHSS agencies for providing these services. Travel time shall not be reimbursed. And 6, companionship is not a benefit of IHSS and shall not be reimbursed. B, HCBS Children's Home and Community-Based Waiver, IHSS 1. IHSS for CHCBS shall be limited to tasks defined as health maintenance activities. 2, family members of a member can only be reimbursed for extraordinary care. C, HCBS elderly, blind, and disabled, EBD, complementary integrative health, CIH waivers. 1, family members shall not be reimbursed for more than 40 hours of personal care services in a 7-day period. And 2, restrictions on allowable personal care units shall not apply to parents who provide attendant services to their eligible adult children in home support services as set forth in these sections. We can pause there for questions on the IHSS.
Thank you, Nicolette. This is John again. So folks, if you have a comment or question, you can raise your hand in the webinar. There's a button on the bottom of the screen that if your screen is a little bit minimized, it's more, and then you click that and they'll show you raise hand. Otherwise, you'll see the button. For those few people who are on the phone, and we have 2 or 3, you can give me your name right now by pressing *6 to add your name to the queue. Okay, hearing none. We have one so far. Liz, please go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Thanks.
Yes, I just had a question. I can't remember if it's in the definitions, but is there a definition of extraordinary care?
Yes, there is. It's higher up, but it is defined up there.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much, Liz. Anyone else for the speakers queue at this point? Again, raising your hand in the webinar is the way to do that unless you're on the phone only. Okay, oh, here we go. Elsa, please go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Thanks.
I guess I have a general question. These have all been added. How much additional limitation and restrictions are being placed on people using these waivers through this particular section of the rules? I guess I'm just not familiar what I'm comparing it to in terms of limitations and restrictions. So it's feeling limiting and restricting, but it's because I don't really have a comparison. Can you talk us through what will change for a family member who is providing these services and the member themselves if these rules are implemented?
I can take that. Hi, everyone. This is Christine Dos Santos from the department. Just want to be clear, this section of rule that is green has been green mostly just because it's actually been moved. So what we ended up doing was we restructured the actual bulk of this section of rule. There is no change in rule at all. So to answer your question, there are no additional requirements, expectations, or anything of that nature when it comes to IHSS or in-home support services. These rules have not changed at all. They have just been moved, condensed to all be put together.
That's really helpful. And so they don't, they're not then going to be applied to a larger group of people on other waivers, I guess is the follow-up question. By putting them within, this new structure, do they then become applicable, or is it just contained within the waivers that are listed at the beginning of this section?
These, yes, correct. These are, we haven't changed the eligibility for IHSS in any fashion. So the waivers that are listed up at the top, according to our new structure of rule, are the same waivers that this program has been available to. So there is no change in that or change in eligibility.
Thank you. Looks like we have another hand up. Michelle Morris, excuse me. Please go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Thanks.
My question is kind of a follow-up on Elsa's question. So I get that these are still basically the same rules for CHCBS, EBD, and CIH waivers. has there been any thoughts, and I might be jumping the gun on this, but when other services move to community first choice to include IHSS, will there be another rule revision for that specifically, or how is that going to work?
Thanks, Michelle, for that question. I can answer this one also. There will be a rule revision when it comes time for CFC. At that time, we will be going through the rules for all the services that are going to be moving or going to be a part of CFC at that time.
Okay, thank you, Christine and Michelle, and we will move forward at this point, Nicolette.
Thank you. Sorry about that too. I do usually go over this piece and I did not. So as you can see here, anything that is in the bracket, those are the major, that may be the actual, like a new language or a policy change. That would be a major revision. Anything that I'm reading here, it is similar language combined or moved from one section to the next. We just want to be totally transparent. And that's why we still read those if it's a large section out loud so that you can see and catch. And maybe with the way that we've changed or put that language in here, maybe there's a better like plain language way of understanding it. So when we read through the green, that's kind of what we're looking for is, hey, did we make this understandable? So, and then yes, anything you see in the red is going to be outdated or removed or a reference to be outdated. So we will move on. Sorry about that. I should have went over that. Okay, and then here on page 8, we just have a little bit in blue that is under C for administrators or managers as defined in statute. Chapters 26 shall satisfactorily complete the department authorized training on IHSS rules and regulations prior to Medicaid certification and annually thereafter. And then added, providers must upload the certificate of completion annually to the Medicaid provider portal. And then under E for the IHSS agency will complete an intake assessment following referral from the case manager, utilizing the authorized unit provided on the IHSS care plan calculator provided by the case manager. And then any proposed services outlined in the care plan that differ from the authorized services and units must be submitted. And then let's see, then I'm going to jump to page 13. Under start of service, we have, under number 2, care plans that exceed the cost of care in an institutional setting cannot be authorized by the case manager without department approval. The case manager will follow the department's overcost containment process and receive authorization prior to authorizing a start date for attendance services. 3, care plans that include health maintenance activities cannot be authorized by the case manager without department approval. The case manager will follow the department's utilization management review process and receive authorization prior to authorizing a start date for attendance services. And then from here, we jump to palliative care. Is there any questions on what I've just read?
Folks, if you do have a question or comment, you can raise your hand in the webinar right now. For those few people who are on the phone only, you can press *6 and give me your name. So I'm scanning to see if anyone has raised their hand. Anyone for the speaker's queue? Okay, Nicolette, looks like nothing right now.
Great, we will keep moving forward. Okay, palliative supportive care. Let's just go through all of these so that the rest makes sense. Palliative supportive care is a specific program offered by a licensed healthcare facility or provider that is specifically focused on the provision of organized palliative care services. Palliative care is specialized medical care for people with life-limiting illnesses. This type of care is focused on providing members with relief from the symptoms, pain, and stress of serious illness, whatever the diagnosis. The goal is to improve the quality of life for both the member and the family. Palliative care is appropriate at any age, 18 and under, for this waiver. At any age, at any stage in life limiting illness, and can be provided together with curative treatment. The services are provided by a hospice or home care agency who have received additional training in palliative care concepts, such as adjustment to illness, advanced care planning, symptom management, and grief loss. For the purpose of this waiver, palliative care includes care coordination and pain and symptom management. Palliative supportive care can be provided together with curative treatment, and then it goes on to what we've always had. And under number 2, care coordination does not include case management agency or case manager responsibilities. Oh, I jumped through that too fast. Sorry about that. Okay. Palliative supportive care provider agency requirements under B. The services are provided by a hospice or home care agency who have received additional training in palliative care concepts, such as adjustment to illness, advanced care planning, symptoms management, and grief and loss. Okay, from here, we are going to jump to page 31. Were there any questions regarding the palliative care section?
Folks, if you do have a question or comment, you can raise your hand right now in the webinar, or if you're on the phone only, unmute, *6, give me your name. Okay, seeing none for the moment, Nicolette.
Great, thank you. Okay, so personal care definitions. A, personal care means services provided to an eligible member to meet the member's physical, maintenance, and supportive needs through hands-on assistance, supervision, and/or cueing. These services do not require a nurse's supervision or a physician's order. Personal care includes tasks included in personal care. 1, eating, feeding, which includes assistance with eating by mouth using common eating utensils such as spoons, forks, knives, and straws. 2, respiratory assistance with cleaning or changing oxygen equipment tubes, filling distilled water reservoirs, and moving a cannula or mask to or from the member's face. 3, preventative skin care when skin is unbroken, including the application of non-medicated, non-prescription lotions, sprays, and/or solutions, and monitoring for skin changes. 4, bladder and bowel care is 1, assisting members to and from the bathroom. 2, assistance with bedpans, urinals, and commodes. 3, changing incontinence clothing or pads. 4, emptying Foley or suprapubic catheter bags, but only if there is no disruption of the closed system. 5, emptying ostomy bags and perineal care. And 6, perineal care. Personal hygiene. 5, 1, bathing including washing and shampooing. 2, grooming. 3, shaving with an electric or safety razor. 4, combing and styling hair. 5, filing and soaking nails. And 6, basic oral hygiene and denture care. 6, dressing assistance with ordinary clothing and the application of non-prescription support stockings, braces, and splints, and the application of artificial limbs when the member is able to assist or direct. 7, transferring a member when the member has sufficient balance and strength to reliably stand and pivot and assist with the transfer. Adaptive and safety equipment may be used in transfers, provided that the member and direct support professional, DPS, are fully trained in the use of equipment and the member can direct and assist with the transfer. 8, mobility assistance when the member has the ability to reliably balance bear weight and or when the member is independent with an assistive device. 9, positioning when the member is able to verbally or non-verbally identify when their position needs to be changed, including simple alignment in a bed, wheelchair, or other furniture. 10, medication reminders when medications have been pre-selected by the member, a family member, a nurse, a pharmacist, and the medications are stored in a container other than the prescription bottles, such as medication minders. And 1, medication minders are clearly marked with the day, time, and dosage and kept in a way as to prevent tampering. 2, medication reminding includes only inquiries as to whether medications were taken, verbally prompting to take medications, handing the appropriately marked medication minder container to the member and opening the appropriately marked medication minder if the member is unable to do so independently. 11, accompanying includes going with the member as indicated on the care plan to medical appointments and errands such as banking and the household shopping. Accompanying the member may include providing one or more personal care services as needed during the trip. A DPS may assist with communication, documentation, verbal prompting, and or hands-on assistance when the task cannot be completed without the support of the attendant. 12, homemaking as described at, and that reference will be filled in, may be provided by personal care staff if provided during the same visit as personal care. 13, cleaning and basic maintenance of durable medical equipment. 14, protective oversight. HCBS elderly blind disabled EBD waiver, brain injury BI waiver, complementary integrated health CIH waiver, community mental health CMHS waiver, protective oversight when the member requires standby assistance with any of the unskilled personal care described in these regulations, or when the member must be supervised at all times to prevent wandering. 2, in-home support services and consumer-directed attendant support services, CDOS, protective oversight when the member requires supervision to prevent or mitigate disability-related behaviors that may result in imminent harm to people or property. 3, HCBS, supported living services, SLS waiver, personal care services provided to SLS members may not include protective oversight. 15, exercise. The HCBS elderly blind disabled waiver, brain injury waiver, complementary and integrated health waiver, community mental health supports, supported living services waiver, exercise when not prescribed by a nurse or other licensed medical professional and limited to the encouragement of a normal body movement as tolerated on the part of the member. 2, in-home supported services and consumer-directed attendant support services, personal care services provided to the IHSS and CDOS members may not include exercise. B, supported living services SLS waiver. 1, in addition to the inclusions above, personal care provided under the SLS waiver also includes 1, assistance with money management, 2, assistance with menu planning and grocery shopping, and 3, assistance with health-related services, including first aid, medication administration, assistance scheduling or reminders to attend routine or as needed medical, dental, and therapy appointments, support that may include accompanying members to routine or as needed medical, dental, or therapy appointments to ensure understanding of instruction, doctor's orders, follow-up, diagnosis, or testing required, or skilled care that takes place out of the home. Personal care services may be provided on an episodic emergency or on a continuing basis. When personal care service is required, it shall be covered to the extent of the Medicaid state plan or third-party resource does not cover the services. So that was quite a bit on that. Do we have any questions? Oh, it looks like we already have hand raised.
So thanks, Nicolette. So we have 3 so far in the queue. Anyone else who would like to add your name to the queue at this point? And again, for those few, I think it's only 2 who are on the phone. If you want to unmute and give me your name right now, you can do that if you're on phone only. Okay, let's start with the hands raised. Julie Miller, thank you. You're up and you have 2 minutes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so my first question is, I have a few questions, so I just need to ask one and then get back in the queue. Is that correct, John?
Yes,
Hello?
we're trying to
Yes,
take
that
one
is
at a
correct.
time.
Thank
Okay,
I beg
so can
Yeah.
we go to 14, please? So it's around protective oversight. This has always been, and I'm kind of waiting for you to go back up there because I don't have it.
Page 14,
okay.
I assume?
No, number 14, protective oversight, down, down.
Gotcha.
Go down. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so
There we
much. Okay, there we go. So this is just, it's really being worded very differently than how we have been instructed by the department in the past. I have a lot of correspondence and have things in writing from the department about what protective oversight is. And so I guess, I mean, one of my concerns with this is it says, or when the member must be supervised at all times to prevent wandering. That has never been included to my knowledge. And if I'm wrong, gosh, this is all a part of the learning process. But my understanding from previous direction with the department was that protective oversight was to be used to help mitigate when a behavior was occurring, to be able to redirect that member so that that behavior was no longer existing. So if I'm reading this correctly, it's very different now to say that protective oversight can be allocated when the member requires supervision at all times to prevent wandering. So I think that would be something that would be needing some additional explanation from the department, because we as case management agencies would get in a really, yeah.
Julie, you
Am I
have 15
almost-
seconds.
Thank you. I'll wrap it up. Just thank you. Need more, a better understanding of what that would look like, because I could see allocating a lot of time. And so, yeah, I think I've made my point clear and I'll get back in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
I can take that if we're responding. I do think, and this is Christine Dos Santos, sorry, everyone. I think the difference here is that protective oversight under personal care, under the waivers, is different than the protective oversight definition under IHSS and consumer directed attendant support services, which is different than how it is defined under the SLS waiver. And so if you look at this, this section of the rule, protective oversight has 3 different definitions to a certain degree, dependent on which waiver or which program we're looking at. These rules, again, are green. They have not changed. So this is the exact same wording that is found in rule currently under each of these sections of rule where they had been found. They've just been added together under one section of personal care.
Christy. So we are, you folks can hear me. I had to jump over to my computer audio. Betty, you're up next, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
We could not hear you, John.
Okay, can you hear me now?
He said Betty was next.
Oh,
and
I'm
she has 2
sorry.
minutes.
I couldn't understand anything that he just said.
Sorry, yeah, he had to jump over.
So I'm sorry. So 14.3, could you please clarify that? So if a person, let's just take in something practical, is in this SLS and they're receiving personal care services and they require protective oversight, that person cannot provide protective oversight? Or is that did you put that in there because it's addressed in a different section? But I mean, if a person is going to do something that is dangerous to themselves or others, and they're with somebody who is providing that, a direct service provider providing that service, that direct service provider cannot give them protective oversight. It is prohibited. They will lose their job if they prevent them from running into the street or slamming their head into a wall. Is that my understanding on this? Or why would you say they can't provide protective oversight? That's it. I just don't understand it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I can speak to that. It is not protective oversight is not a reimbursable under personal care for SLS. It's not that it can't be provided. It's just that it is not a billable task under SLS waiver for personal care services, as our rules. And again, rules have not changed. This has just been moved from the SLS section of rule.
I see. Maybe it should be changed because that doesn't make sense.
Okay, maybe that is something that we can add into our issues for further discussion. And then we can take the next person in the queue. And John, do you know who that was? Is it, I see Tara on mine. We may have lost John. So Tara, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
It was Betty.
Okay. So
no, I was just finished. I just would hope that we would relook at the personal care services provided to an SLMS member. You cannot provide protective it says may not include, doesn't talk about being reimbursable, but just you can't do the service.
Hello?
Thank you. Hi. This is
Hi.
John. I'm so
What's up?
sorry. I got bumped off the phone. I'm back on. Sorry.
and somewhere in there, I lost my hand being raised. Sorry. This is Tara.
You were next, Tara. Go ahead.
Awesome. I think this might be a relatively easy one. So I am wondering if under B14.
What does that mean? I mean, like, I don't, like, it comes out of my Capital One.
So I think we have some background. Okay. So under B14 about personal care services, how they're provided, and then also that they should not be covered if there's a Medicaid state plan or third-party resource. That seems to apply to all of the waivers, and yet the way it's structured, it seems like it's just referring to SLS. Is that correct?
Do we have a subject matter expert that can answer that question?
If not, this is John. Can we take that into advisement and get a response later?
Sounds good. Yep. Just wanted to point it out.
No. And thank you, Tara. And sorry, everyone, for my glitch. I bump myself
Hey,
off
John.
the phone.
This is Danny from the PDP team. I think while we were watching the scrolling happen, I think we might have missed what section Tara was referring to. Would you mind just repeating that, and we might be able to answer it?
Yes, it is under that section that we were just reading. So 8.7436.02, letter B, where it talks about SLS waiver, number 1.4.
1.
So it's toward the top of page 33.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we might actually have to take that one back, but we have a note of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara and Danny. So we will go to Julie, and I think after this, we might need to be moving forward. Julie, please go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Thanks.
Okay, so sorry. You know what, John, I'll have to loop back to this, and I've had some other things come up. So I'll just add it somewhere so I can get it for things for further discussion. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
Julie, thank you. I will check in with, I see no more hands right now, Nicolette.
All right, let's see. May need help like where I was since we were a little bit in the middle. Let's see, did I finish all these? Personal care reimbursement requirements. Have we gone over this piece yet?
I think this is where you were at, Nicolette.
Great, perfect. All right. A, HCBS brain injury waiver, elderly blind disabled waiver, complementary and integrative health waiver, and community mental health supports waiver. 1, payment for personal care services shall be the lower of the billed charges or the maximum rate of the reimbursement. Reimbursement shall be per unit of the hour. The maximum unit rate shall be adjusted by the state as funding becomes available. 2, payment does not include travel time to or from the member's residence when personal care services are used to provide respite for unpaid primary caregivers. The exact service rendered must be specified in the documentation. And then the new 4 will be if a visit by a personal care staff includes some homemaker services, the entire visit shall be billed as personal care services. If the visit includes only homemaker services and no personal care is provided, the entire visit shall be billed as a homemaker service, as homemaker services. 6, if a visit by a home health aide from a home health agency includes unskilled personal care, as defined in this section, only the home health aide visit shall be billed. And 7, there shall be no reimbursement under this section for personal care services provided in uncertified congregate facilities. Okay. And then under A for the, we have just added in here by increasing general employment skills. And A, pre-vocational services are available in the HCBS supported living service waiver and HCBS developmental disabilities DD waiver. And then 1, service consistent of teaching concepts associated with performing compensated work, including attendance, task, problem solving, safety, and skills. And then there we see just a lot of that language change. And we go to 37. Oh, no, 38. Okay. So now we skip to 44. Is there anything on that small bit of section I just read? Any questions?
Folks, if you do, you can raise your hand in the webinar right now. Or phone only, unmute your phone, *6. Anyone? We have 1 so far. Anyone else? Okay. Betty, thanks. Please go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
What is the uncertified setting? I don't understand that. a person needs to go out and they have an accompaniment, does that mean that they're not going to be compensated? The provider won't be compensated because the setting, whether it's a rec center or a grocery store, isn't certified?
Do we have a subject matter expert to answer that question? We're getting somebody for you. 1 second.
Shall we come back to this, Nicolette? Make a note of it?
Yes, we're going to take that back.
Okay, just want to have a
Thanks,
definition of uncertified setting.
Great. All right, we will take that back. Thank you.
That was all for now in the queue, Nicolette.
Okay. We are going to skip to 44. Adult respite inclusions. Number 3, respite may be provided in the member's home of the respite provider, or in the community. And HCBS brain injury waiver, the same ad there. And I think that's it for that. We're going to then jump to page 51. Substance use counseling, BI formally at 8.516.60. These services are in addition to counseling services available through state plan services and are not intended to replace these services. And then substance use counseling inclusions, outpatient, individual, group, and family counseling services can be provided in the home, community, or provider office. And C, the service is limited to 30 visits of individual, group, family, or a combination of counseling services. The department may authorize additional units based on the needs identified in the support plan. And supported employment. Supported employment services are provided to members who, because of their disabilities, need intensive ongoing support to obtain and maintain a job in competitive employment, customized employment, or self-employment. The outcome of this service is sustained paid employment in a job that meets personal and career goals. The job must be in an integrated setting in the general workforce and must be compensated at or above the customary wage and level of benefit paid by the employer for the same or similar work performed by individuals without disabilities. The specific supported employment services are job development, job placement, job coaching, and workplace assistance. Supported employment services are available in the HCBS Supported Living Service Waiver and the HCBS Developmental Disability Waiver. D, supported employment supports members in achieving sustained paid employment at or above minimum wage in an integrated setting in the general workforce in a job that meets personal and career goals. E, group employment services, example, mobile crews, are available to small groups of members, 2 or more, not exceeding 8 persons, and are provided in community, business, industry settings. Supported employment services, exclusions and limitations. Supported employment services do not include payment for supervision, training, support, and adaptations typically available to other workers without disabilities filling similar positions in the business. And E, supported employment, including group employment, does not include services provided in a facility-based work setting or other similar types of vocational services furnished in specialized facilities that are owned or operated by an agency whose primary focus is service provisions to persons with developmental disabilities, or settings that are not part of the general community workplace. Supported employment services provider agency requirements. Supported employment service providers, including supported employment professionals who provide individual competitive integrated employment as defined in statute, which is incorporated herein by reference and excluding professionals providing group or other congregate service providers must comply with the following training and certification requirements. The incorporation of 34 of this statute excludes later amendments to or additions of the referenced material. Pursuant to statute, the department maintains copies of the incorporated text in its entirety, available for the public inspection during regular business hours at the Colorado Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing and address. Certified copies of the incorporated material will be provided at cost upon request. B, subject to availability of appropriations for reimbursement in sections 8.500.14.h, providers must obtain a nationally recognized supported employment training certificate, training certificate, I put that twice, or a nationally recognized supported employment certification. Deadlines. 1. Existing staff employed by the provider on or before July 1st, 2019 must obtain a training certificate or a certification no later than July 1st, 2024. Newly hired staff employed by the provider after July 1st, 2019 must obtain a training certificate or certification no later than July 1st, 2024. Beginning July 1st, 2024, newly hired staff must be supervised by existing staff until the newly hired staff has obtained the required training certificate or certification. Department approval required. 1. The training certificate or certification required. Oh, my dog's gonna go crazy. I'm sorry. We can take questions while I get my dog out of here.
Okay, Nicolette, thanks. So folks, this is John. If you have a comment or question, you can enter your name into the queue. Raise your hand in the webinar. We have one so far. For those who are on the phone only, you can unmute right now. Press *6 and give me your name. Again, we have one hand so far. Anyone else? Okay. Betty, please go ahead. Thanks. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I've seen this language before and I don't have any disagreement with it, except for one thing. When you have a medically fragile person who does want to work and can work on their computer at home and requires some supported employment in order to be able to do that kind of work, and a lot of people are working from home, I know I am, and so I think that prohibits the capacity for somebody to work from home because they either have mental health challenges. I have clients who are scared of germs in public settings, things like that, crazy stuff, but real to them, and that they do want to work, but they can't work in an integrated setting. They just cannot. And I don't see any exception for that. And I just wanted to make that comment.
Thanks for the comment, Betty. Anyone else for the queue? Or I'm ahead of myself here, perhaps one of our team might want to respond to that as well. Sorry about that. Betty, I believe we're looking for someone to respond. Be right with you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So this is Jenny Jordan. I'm on the supported employee team with with healthcare policy and financing. And absolutely, Betty, we are looking at the different options for people in community settings. We are working with DBR in terms of giving definition to that, and hear you that work has changed and how people are integrating at home may be a little bit different. So we do have kind of that on our radar, and I don't think we specifically are excluding it, and we would be working with people to get them connected with the jobs that they are really wanting, kind of the best that we can.
Thank you, Jenny. So I do see Betty's hand up again. If this is a new comment, Betty, let me just pause for a second, see if anyone else wants to enter the queue as well at this point. Any hands for the queue, names for the queue by phone? Okay. We had one from someone there and it went away. There we are. I don't think we've heard from Kristen yet. Kristen Adams, please go ahead. You have 2 minutes, thanks.
Hi, yeah, I put a comment in there, but I agree with Betty. I think we really need to catch up on the technology aspect and the work from home situation, and having somebody there to support an individual to be able to do that now that that is becoming more widespread. And like Betty said, there's many individuals that would benefit from working from home. I have had several clients in the past that with autism that don't do well in, like she said, an integrated setting with a lot of people, and they do much better from home. I've had clients and parents tell me over the last 3 years now that they can do school at home because their child is flourishing because he doesn't or she doesn't have to deal with the social aspect of her education or his education. And that's just a comment.
Those are great. We'll be working on these rules going forward. We'll take what you and Betty have said to heart. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen and Betty, and we will, and Jenny, we will go forward now, Nicolette.
Sounds good. Thank you for those. Yes, the team has said they're going to take that back and see what they can do with that. So we are at, where was I when that little pest started getting mad at my trash people? Name of training, I think. Let's see. Name of training if applicable, including A, number of staff to be trained, B, documentation that the training is nationally recognized, which includes but is not limited to standards that are set and approved by a relevant industry group or governing body nationwide. C, name of certification if applicable, including 1, number of staff to receive certification, 2, documentation that the certification is nationally recognized, which includes but is not limited to standards that are set and approved by a relevant industry group or governing body nationwide. D, dates of training if applicable, including whether a certificate of completion is received. E, date of certification exam if applicable. And 2, department approval will be based on alignment with the following core competencies. 1, core value and principles of supported employment, including the following. A, the priority is employment for all working age persons with disabilities, and that all people are capable of full participation in employment and community life. These values and principles are essential to successfully providing supported employment services. The person-centered process, including the following. A, the process that identifies the strengths, preferences, needs, clinical and support, and desired outcomes of the individual and individually identified goals as preferences related to relationships, community participation, employment, income and savings, healthcare and wellness, and education. The person-centered approach includes working with a team where the individual chooses the people involved on the team, and receives necessary information and support to ensure he or she is able to direct the process to maximum extent possible. Effective communication and appropriate assessment. Individualized career assessment and planning, including the following. The process used to determine the individual's strengths, needs, and interests to support career exploration and leads to effective career planning, including the consideration of necessary accommodations and benefits planning. Individual job development, including the following. Identifying and creating individualized, competitive, integrated employment opportunities for individuals with significant disabilities, which meet the needs of both the employer and the individuals. The competency includes negotiation of necessary disability accommodations. Individualized job coaching includes the following. Providing necessary workplace supports to members with significant disabilities to ensure success in competitive integrated employment and resulting in reduction in the need for paid workplace supports over time. Job development, including the following. Effectively engaging employers for the purpose of community job development for members with significant disabilities, which meets the needs of both the employer and the member. The department, in consultation with the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment's Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, will either grant or deny approval and notify the provider of its determination within 30 days, receiving pre-approval requests. And we can take questions if there's any more on this section, and then we will jump to page 57, SLS provider.
Thanks, Nicolette. So this is John again. If you have any comments or questions on this section that Nicolette just went over, you can raise your hand in the webinar. Or if you're on the phone only, *6, give me your name. Anyone? Okay, we did have Betty there for a moment. Betty, did you have a comment or question on this section?
I do. I just wanted to give a comment for Jenny that might be helpful. I have a client who has a home sewing business. So it's not necessarily on a computer, but they do piece rate work, and they're really not. It's the kind of work that they need to sit at home with a sewing machine and do their work and then deliver it. It's not a congregate setting kind of home business. I know other people that have mailing businesses or different kinds of home businesses because they have significant intellectual and developmental disabilities, and they don't do well being around other people. They can't tend to their work in that way. So it doesn't mean that they're prohibited necessarily, but the kind of work that they do, and it doesn't just mean computers, but sewing or mailing or, you know, doing different kinds of home-based businesses that many people do, people with disabilities can do as well. So I'm hoping that you can come up with some kind of an exclusion if they have a legitimate business that they're trying to do. Dog walking, Krista just put in, but that, you know, that they get paid for, but that they can't do it. It's not the type of work that they do where they're integrated with other people. So I just wanted to put that out there so you're thinking about it when you're trying to revise or create an exception for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. Betty, we very much want to envision people in self-employment settings as well. We will be keeping that in mind. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Betty. So Nicolette, that's all the names in the queue for now.
Great, thank you. All right. SLP provider reimbursement requirements. Room and board shall not be a benefit of SLP services per statute. SLP services shall be reimbursed according to a tiered per diem rate based on member acuity using a methodology determined by the department. SLP services are subject to post-eligibility treatment of income as outlined in, and then that will be updated and referenced. Okay. And then we're going to jump to page 63. Case management agency responsibilities. The total cost of home accessibility adaptations, vehicle modifications, and assistive technologies shall not exceed $10,000 over the 5-year life of the HCBS waiver without an exception granted by the department. B, the case manager may approve vehicle modification projects estimated at less than $10,000 for the cost of home modification, vehicle modifications, and assistive tech at the end. C, for projects over $10,000, the case manager shall obtain approval by submitting a request to the department. 1, the case manager must obtain all supporting documentation according to department prescribed process and procedures. 2, I always have a hard time with all those P's in a row. 2, an occupational or physical therapist, OT or PT, shall assess the member's needs and the therapeutic value of the requested vehicle modification. When an OT PT with experience in vehicle modification, we have 2 modifications there, is not available, a qualified individual may be substituted with department approval. 3, the case manager will obtain at least 2 bids for the necessary work. If the case manager has made 3 attempts to obtain a written bid from a provider and the provider has not responded within 30 calendar days, the case manager may request approval of 1 bid. D, costs that exceed $10,000 may be approved for service items or devices must be. 1, to ensure the health and safety of the member. 2, to enable the member to function with greater independence in the home. Or 3, to decrease the need for paid assistance in another HCBS waiver service on a long-term basis. E, approval for a higher amount will include a thorough review of the current request as well as past expenditures to ensure cost effectiveness, prudent purchases, and no unnecessary duplication. Vehicle modification reimbursement. A, the total cost of home accessibility, adaptation, vehicle modification, and assistive technology shall not exceed $10,000 over the 5-year life of the HCBS waiver without an exception granted by the department. B, previously completed vehicle modification work cannot be reimbursed. Do we have any questions regarding that section?
This is John. Nicolette, we have 1 so far name in the queue from the chat, but anyone else who wants to raise their hand in the webinar, add your name to the queue, or give me your name via phone, unmute your phone. Okay. Jerry Froney, please go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Thanks.
Yes, my comment is about the supported employment. I didn't get on fast enough, but it talks in support employment about the necessity of the support person fading out. In other words, eventually the individual with needs would no longer need the support person. But there are many instances of persons with disabilities where it would never be reasonable to have the support person fade out. In other words, the support of a support person is a permanent arrangement. So I want to make sure that that concept is captured in the supported employment wording so that individuals who have a permanent need for support in order to work in integrated employment, that is a payable support and would not be excluded from supported employment eligibility. Would somebody from HCBS please at least comment? Thank you.
Yes, hello, Jerry. Thank you so much for those comments. We are absolutely on the same page with this. Our team is working hard, and starting July 1st, we're introducing a new service called Workplace Assistance, in which people can get that longer term on-site support. So those rules were kind of added in last month, and you'll see some of them here. They are not specifically under supported employment with just how we fit them in with this particular draft, but it's under workplace assistance.
Thank you very much, Jenny. This is John. Is there anyone else for the queue at this point? You can raise your hand in the webinar. If you're on the phone only, unmute your phone, *6.
And also I wanted to let Jerry know that it looks like they're also taking that feedback to address the wording in here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nicolette, that appears to be all for right now.
All right, we will continue. Okay, for wraparound services. A crisis is an event, series of events, and or state of being that is more severe than typical for the child or youth and or family, is outside the manageable range for the child or youth and or their caregivers, and poses a danger to self, family, and or the community. B, a crisis may be self-identified, family identified, and or identified by an outside party. C, wraparound services may be provided individually or in conjunction with the child and youth mentorship service defined. That will be added. And then CHIRP wraparound plan. The wraparound facilitator is responsible for and so that's an add for the development of the wraparound plan. And then also added in under B for the revisions of strategy should be continuous process is no longer a need for wraparound supported services. Was added. Wraparound service provider agency requirements. A, individuals providing wraparound services must meet the following criteria. 1, wraparound plan facilitator must 1, have a bachelor's degree in a human behavioral science or related field of study, or 2, has experience working with long-term services and supports, LTSS population, in a private or public social service agency, may substitute for the required education on a year-for-year basis. A, when using a combination of experience and education to qualify, the education must have a strong emphasis in human behavioral science field. 3, have received certification through a nationally accredited wraparound program. A, training, a certification training and certification must encompass all of the following. 1, trauma-informed care. B, youth mental health first aid. 1, crisis support and planning. 2, positive behavior support, behavior intervention and de-escalation techniques. 3, cultural and linguistic competencies. 4, family and youth support and youth service system. 5, family engagement. 6, child and adolescent development. 7, accessing community resources and services. 8, conflict resolution. 9, the intellectual and developmental disabilities. Intellectual and developmental disabilities. 10, mental health topics and services. 11, substance abuse topics and services. 12, psychotropic medications. 13, motivational interviewing. 14, prevention, detection, and reporting of mistreatment, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And 15, complete a recertification and wraparound training at least every other year as directed by wraparound training program. In youth and mentorship. Child and youth mentorship inclusions. C, child and youth mentorship may be provided individually or in conjunction with the wraparound service defined, and that will be placed there. Child and youth mentorship provider agency requirements. A, individuals providing child and youth mentorship must meet the following criteria. 1, complete at least 40 hours of training in crisis prevention, de-escalation, and intervention that must encompass all of the following. 1, trauma-informed care. 2, youth mental health first aid. 3, positive behavior support, behavior intervention, and de-escalation techniques. 4, cultural competency. 5, family system and family engagement. 6, child and adolescent development. 7, mental health topics and service. 8, substance abuse topics and services. 9, psychotropic medications. 10, prevention, detection, and reporting of mistreatment, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. 11, intellectual and developmental disabilities. 12, child youth specific training. And 2, complete annual refresher course on the above training topics. And do we have any questions here? And we'll try to make it quick so we could get through these. Sorry.
If you do have a question or comment, folks, you can raise your hand in the webinar right now, or if you're on the phone, unmute, *6. Let's see. Nothing right now, Nicolette.
Great, we will keep going. Workplace service inclusions. A, workplace assistance is available in the HCBS Supported Living Service SLS and the HCBS Developmental Disability Waiver. And let's see, what page am I on? I may be able to skip. Oh, just a 69. Workplace assistance reimbursement. The total number of units available for workplace assistance service in combination with other supported employment services is 7,112 units per support plan year. 1 unit equals 15 minutes of service. And then we're going to skip to 75. When an individual is enrolled in an HCBS waiver, the individual may receive services through the state SLS program as long as the services are not duplicative. 1, individuals enrolled in the HCBS SLS and HCBS DD shall not use state SLS for ongoing services, but may use state SLS for emergency services only. And it looks like then we skip to 82. Under direct services, 1, assistive technology is equipment or upgrades to equipment. What was added is assistive technology includes non-adaptive equipment that meets disability-specific needs identified in the family support plan. And under number 5, other services in this category must be identified in the FSP or specific to the family and are limited to. Number 2, the cost of family recreation pass shall be the cost of one family pass per fiscal year and shall be limited to the use only at community recreation centers, except in communities where community recreation centers do not exist and in cases where the use of an alternative recreation facility is justified by a need related to the disability or delay, and the activity and or facility is recommended by a licensed or certified professional qualified to make recommendation. In such circumstances, the CMA shall document the professional recommendation and demonstrate that the chosen facility is the least expensive option to meet the family's needs. 3, the following items are specifically excluded under the FSSP and shall not be eligible for coverage. A, entrance fees for 1, zoos, 2, museums, 3, butterfly pavilion, 4, movie theater concerts, and 5, professional or minor league sporting events. B, outdoor play structures, and C, batteries for recreational items. And K, respite is the temporary care of an individual with an IDD that provides relief to the family. And that is it until our last page on 91. We can take questions.
Hey, Nicolette. So folks, if you do have a comment or question, you can raise your hand in the webinar. Mute your phone, *6. We have one so far. Anyone else? Okay. Betty, please go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Thanks.
The respite part and it says for the family, but should it not say family and or caregiver? Like respite is the temporary care of an individual with an IDD that provides relief to the family and or caregiver.
Yes, do we have a subject matter expert that can address that?
Hi, this is Karen Stewart. We'll take that back. I think the reason family is noted is because it's under a family support services program, but we can look at if we want to spell that out a little broader. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Betty. Anyone else? Comment or question regarding this part of the material? Raise your hand in the webinar. Okay, seeing none right now. Nicolette?
And I was wrong. I forgot that this last section that I had flagged is actually just supposed to be a red line section. So nothing that is needing to be read. So we actually have wrapped up the last section of our rules. And this is so exciting. I'm so glad that everybody has come and helped with all of these and helped with our wording. And we do very much promise that we are going to really work hard on those listening logs and try to get everything updated. And remember, in the meantime, please you can go through and do a Control F and search out your name and see where you've asked questions. If nothing, is there, and you really want to know that before, by the time we're doing our wrap-up meeting, if you can give those to Tiffany and myself, like as soon as possible, so that we can get anything that you still need unanswered, answered, and anything that maybe we have answered, but you need more clarification on, or you want that discussion for our June 27th meeting. But everything that you all have done in this is huge. We really thank everybody for advocating for their community, and all of the help that everybody has provided in this massive rule revision and restructure project. We really appreciate you all. I'm also going to leave just a little bit of time here at the end for anybody who wants to copy the chat. But thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone. We will see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, unless there's any objections or anybody that just needs a quick minute to finish copying the chat, I'm going to sign off. All right, thank you, everybody.